Natalie Harper stood frozen behind the restaurant pillar, her hand pressed against her growing belly where 3 tiny hearts beat in perfect rhythm. Through the dim lighting of the exclusive dining room, she watched her husband Victor laugh with a woman who was definitely not his business associate. The redhead leaned into him, whispering something that made Victor smile in a way he had not smiled at Natalie in months. She had come to surprise him with the news. Triplets. 3 beautiful miracles growing inside her after 2 years of trying to conceive. The ultrasound photos felt heavy in her purse, and suddenly the surprise dinner she had planned felt like the worst idea she had ever had. "Your wife is so clueless," the woman said loudly enough for Natalie to hear. "Does she really think you love her?" Victor's laugh cut through Natalie's chest like broken glass. "Natalie was useful when I needed her family's investment connections. But now that the Harper Tech merger is complete, she has served her purpose. I'm filing for divorce next week." Natalie's breath caught in her throat. 3 years of marriage. 3 years of believing in their love story. 3 years of defending him to her family when they said he was using her. They had been right all along. "What if she fights back?" the woman asked. "With what?" Victor's voice dripped with contempt. "She signed a prenuptial agreement. She gets nothing. Besides, I have friends in every major company in this city. One word from me and she will never work anywhere respectable again." Cast out into the night. Natalie did not remember leaving the restaurant. She did not remember driving home or packing her suitcase with shaking hands. But she remembered very clearly when Victor came home at midnight, smelling of expensive perfume, and found her sitting in their living room with her bags packed. "Going somewhere?" he asked casually, not even bothering to hide his lack of concern. "I heard everything at the restaurant," Natalie said quietly. "Every single word." Victor's face showed no remorse, only irritation at being caught. "Good. Saves me the trouble of explaining. Sign the divorce papers on the table and leave quietly. You can stay in a hotel tonight on my credit card. Consider it my final act of generosity." "I'm pregnant," Natalie whispered, her hand moving protectively to her stomach. "With triplets. Your children." The silence that followed was colder than any winter night. Victor's expression twisted into something ugly and cruel. "That is your problem, not mine. I never wanted children, especially not with you." "These are your children," Natalie repeated, tears streaming down her face. "How can you just walk away?" "Watch me," Victor said, pulling out his phone. "You have 30 minutes to get out of my house before I call security. And Natalie, if you try to claim these children are mine or ask for any support, I will destroy you so completely that you will wish you had never met me." The storm. 20 minutes later, Natalie stood in the pouring rain outside the house she had called home. Her suitcase was soaked through, and she had nowhere to go. Her family lived across the country, and pride kept her from calling them to say they had been right about Victor all along. The rain fell harder, and Natalie felt her strength giving out. She stumbled toward a bus shelter, but her legs buckled underneath her. She fell to her knees on the wet sidewalk, her hands braced against the concrete, protecting her belly even as the world spun around her. "Please," she whispered to no one. "Somebody help me. Help my babies." That was when the sleek black car pulled up beside her, and a man stepped out with an umbrella. He was tall and commanding, with kind eyes that seemed to see right through her pain. His expensive suit somehow made him look approachable rather than intimidating. "Miss, are you all right?" His voice was warm despite the cold rain. "I'm fine," Natalie lied automatically, trying to stand and failing. The man crouched down beside her, holding the umbrella over both of them. "You are clearly not fine. When did you last eat? When did you last sleep somewhere safe?" Natalie looked up at him through her tears. "Why do you care? You don't even know me." "My name is Jonathan Pierce," he said gently. "And you are right, I don't know you. But I know what it looks like when someone needs help, and I know that leaving you here in this storm would make me the worst kind of person. I have no money, Natalie said bitterly. My husband just threw me out. I have nowhere to go. Jonathan's jaw tightened. Your husband threw you out in this condition? During a thunderstorm? He made his feelings very clear, Natalie said, more tears mixing with the rain on her face. I'm pregnant with triplets, and he wants nothing to do with us. Jonathan stood up and offered her his hand. Then he is a fool who does not deserve you. Come with me. I have a guest house that is sitting empty. You can stay there while you figure out your next steps. I can't accept charity from a stranger, Natalie protested weakly. It is not charity, Jonathan said firmly. It is human decency. And besides, I have a proposition for you. I need someone to manage the charitable foundation for my company. I saw your presentation at the Business Women's Conference last year. You were brilliant. Natalie stared at him in disbelief. You want to hire me? Right now? Like this? I want to offer you a chance, Jonathan corrected. A real job with real pay. A safe place to live while you prepare for your babies. And maybe, if you let me, a friend who will stand by you when you need one most. Something in his eyes made Natalie believe him. Against every logical thought in her head, she reached up and took his hand. He helped her to her feet with surprising gentleness, and his hand stayed steady on her elbow as he guided her toward the car. Why are you doing this? Natalie asked as they drove through the rain-soaked streets. Jonathan glanced at her with a soft smile. Because 5 years ago, someone helped me when I had lost everything. They gave me a chance to rebuild my life. Now I run a billion-dollar tech company, and I have never forgotten what it felt like to be desperate and alone. I swore that if I ever had the chance to help someone else the way I was helped, I would take it. Natalie leaned back against the heated leather seat, feeling warmth return to her body for the first time in hours. I don't even know what to say. You don't have to say anything, Jonathan replied. Just promise me that when you are back on your feet and stronger than ever, you will remember this feeling. And maybe someday you will help someone else who needs it. As they pulled up to a beautiful estate with a charming guest house, Natalie felt something she had not felt in months. Hope. Real, genuine hope that maybe everything was going to be okay after all. Natalie stood in the gleaming office of Pierce Industries, her hands resting on the edge of the conference table as she reviewed the quarterly reports. 6 months had passed since that stormy night, and her life had transformed in ways she never imagined possible. The charitable foundation she managed had raised over $15 million for children's hospitals, and her strategic vision had impressed every board member Jonathan introduced her to. Her reflection in the glass window showed a different woman than the one who had knelt in the rain. She wore a tailored navy dress that accommodated her 8-month pregnant belly with grace. Her dark hair was pulled back in a professional style, and her eyes held a confidence that Victor had spent years trying to destroy. You should be resting, Jonathan's voice came from the doorway. He carried a cup of herbal tea and wore that expression of gentle concern that had become familiar over the months. I'm pregnant, not broken, Natalie replied with a smile. Besides, the gala is in 2 weeks. We need to finalize the donor list. Jonathan set the tea down beside her and stood close enough that she could smell his cologne. It was subtle and expensive, nothing like the overwhelming scent Victor used to wear. Everything about Jonathan was different. Where Victor had been loud and demanding, Jonathan was quiet and thoughtful. Where Victor had made her feel small, Jonathan made her feel powerful. The gala can wait, Jonathan said softly. Your health cannot. When did you last take a break? Natalie looked up at him, and her heart did that strange flutter it had been doing more frequently lately. You worry too much. Someone has to, Jonathan replied, his hand moving unconsciously toward her shoulder before he caught himself and pulled back. That happened often now. These almost touches that left the air between them charged with something neither was ready to name. The babies arrive. 3 days later, Natalie's water broke during a foundation meeting. Jonathan had her at the hospital in record time, his hand gripping hers as he called her family and coordinated everything with military precision. He stayed through all 14 hours of labor, never leaving her side even when the nurses assumed he was the father and he did not correct them. Oliver came first, screaming with healthy lungs. Then Sophia, quiet and observant. Finally Lucas, who took his time entering the world as if he wanted to make an entrance. 3 perfect babies with 10 fingers and 10 toes each. They are beautiful, Jonathan whispered, tears streaming down his face as he looked at each tiny face. Natalie, they are absolutely perfect. Natalie watched him hold Oliver with such natural tenderness that her chest ached. You are really good at this. I had a lot of practice with my nieces and nephews, Jonathan said, carefully supporting Oliver's head. But this feels different. This feels like family. The word hung in the air between them, heavy with meaning neither was quite ready to examine. Over the next weeks, Jonathan proved just how much he meant it. He took paternity leave from his own company to help with the triplets. He learned to change diapers and prepare bottles with the dedication he usually reserved for business deals. He sang lullabies in a surprisingly good voice and walked the floors at 3 in the morning when the babies would not settle. Victor's return. 2 months after the triplets were born, Victor appeared at the Pierce estate. Natalie was in the garden with the babies when the security guard called to say someone was demanding to see her. Her stomach dropped when she heard Victor's name. Let him in, she said quietly, her hands tightening on the stroller handle. But stay close. Victor looked different. His expensive suit was slightly rumpled, and there were dark circles under his eyes. He stopped short when he saw her with the 3 babies, his expression flickering between shock and calculation. Natalie, he said, his voice lacking its usual confidence. You look well. What do you want, Victor? Natalie kept her voice steady and cold. I heard about your position at Pierce Industries, Victor said, moving closer. And about the babies. I was wrong, Natalie. I made a terrible mistake. I want to be part of their lives. Natalie laughed, but there was no humor in it. You threw me out in a thunderstorm while I was pregnant. You told me these children meant nothing to you. What changed? I realized what I lost, Victor said, and he almost sounded sincere. You, the children, our life together. I want another chance. No, Natalie said simply. Victor's face hardened. Those are my children, Natalie. I have legal rights. Actually, you don't, Jonathan's voice cut through the tension as he stepped out of the house. You verbally renounced all parental rights the night you threw her out. We have security footage from the house that captured everything. You said, and I quote, "These children are not your problem." Victor's face went pale. You recorded me? Your own security system recorded you, Jonathan corrected. Natalie had access to the cloud storage for the house cameras. The footage is quite clear. You abandoned your pregnant wife and explicitly rejected these children before they were even born. You have no right to interfere, Victor snarled, his mask of remorse slipping completely. I have every right, Jonathan said calmly, moving to stand beside Natalie. I am the one who has been here. I am the one who held her hand through labor. I am the one who wakes up at 3 in the morning when these babies cry. What right do you have, exactly? Victor looked between them, his expression turning ugly. I see what this is. You moved on quickly, didn't you, Natalie? How long were you sleeping with him before you left me? Get out, Natalie said quietly, her voice deadly calm. Get out before I call the police and show them that footage along with the recordings of your threats to destroy my career. A growing love. After Victor left, Natalie found herself shaking. Jonathan guided her to a bench, his arm around her shoulders in a gesture of pure comfort. The babies slept peacefully in their stroller, unaware of the confrontation that had just occurred. Thank you, Natalie whispered. For everything. For standing with me. Always, Jonathan said, and the word felt like a promise. Natalie, I need to tell you something. She looked up at him, her heart racing at the intensity in his eyes. These past months with you and the triplets have been the happiest of my life, Jonathan continued. I know the timing is complicated. I know you are still healing from what Victor did. But I need you to know that my feelings for you are real. This is not about charity or pity. This is about the fact that I am completely in love with you. Natalie's breath caught. Jonathan, I don't know what to say. You don't have to say anything right now, Jonathan said gently. I just needed you to know. I love you. I love Oliver, Sophia, and Lucas as if they were my own. I want to build a life with you, a real family. But only if that is what you want too. I will never pressure you. I will never make you feel obligated. Natalie felt tears streaming down her face. I'm scared. Victor destroyed my trust in love. How do I know this is real? You don't, Jonathan admitted honestly. Love always requires faith. But I promise you this, I will spend every single day proving to you that you can trust me. I will show up. I will stay. I will love you and these children with everything I have. The business empire grows. Over the following months, their partnership expanded beyond the foundation. Jonathan brought Natalie into Pierce Industries as Vice President of Strategic Development. Her mind for business matched his perfectly, and together they began building something revolutionary. They developed technology to connect nonprofits with donors more efficiently, creating a platform that would change charitable giving forever. Natalie's confidence bloomed under Jonathan's encouragement. He never tried to control her or diminish her ideas. Instead, he amplified them, giving her credit publicly and supporting her vision. When investors questioned her inexperience, Jonathan made it clear that she was essential to the company's success. When business magazines wanted to interview him alone, he insisted Natalie be included. The triplets thrived in their loving environment. Oliver grew into a curious toddler who loved books. Sophia became a gentle soul who noticed when anyone was sad. Lucas developed a mischievous streak that kept everyone laughing. And through it all, Jonathan was there. Not as a distant benefactor, but as a true father figure who loved them unconditionally. Victor made several more attempts to insert himself into their lives, each one more desperate than the last. His business had suffered after key partners learned about how he had treated Natalie. The technology sector was smaller than he realized, and word spread quickly about his character. Companies that once courted him now kept their distance. Meanwhile, Natalie's star rose. She spoke at conferences about social entrepreneurship. She was featured in business magazines as an innovator in charitable technology. And through it all, Jonathan stood beside her, proud and supportive, never trying to steal her spotlight. One evening, after putting the triplets to bed, Natalie found Jonathan on the terrace overlooking the city lights. He looked deep in thought, and something about his expression made her heart ache with tenderness. "What are you thinking about?" she asked, moving to stand beside him. Jonathan turned to her with a smile that made her stomach flip. "I was thinking about the night we met. How you looked so lost and broken in that rain. And how you trusted me enough to get in my car and accept my help. Best decision I ever made," Natalie said softly. "I was also thinking," Jonathan continued, reaching for her hand, "about how much my life has changed since then. You and the children have given me a purpose beyond making money. You have given me a family. You have given me love." Natalie squeezed his hand. "You saved us, Jonathan. You gave us everything." "No," Jonathan said firmly, pulling her closer. "You saved yourself. I just gave you a safe place to land while you found your strength again. The woman you are now, the success you have achieved, that is all you, Natalie." She looked up at him, and suddenly all the fear and hesitation melted away. "I love you," she whispered. I think I have loved you for months, but I was too scared to admit it. Jonathan's smile was radiant. Say that again. I love you, Natalie repeated, laughing through happy tears. I love you, Jonathan Pierce. I love how you care for my children. I love how you believe in me. I love how you make me feel strong and capable and cherished. Jonathan cupped her face in his hands and kissed her with a tenderness that made her knees weak. It was their first kiss, and it felt like coming home. When they finally pulled apart, both were breathing hard, foreheads pressed together. Marry me, Jonathan whispered. Not now, not until you are ready. But someday. Marry me and let me spend the rest of my life loving you and those 3 amazing children. Natalie smiled against his lips. Someday, she promised. When the time is right. But Jonathan, you should know that my answer will be yes. 2 years after that rainy night, Natalie Harper stood on the stage of the New York Stock Exchange, her hand poised over the button that would take their company public. Pierce Innovations had grown from a dream into a reality that was changing the world. Their charitable technology platform now connected over 10,000 nonprofits with donors globally, and their business software division was competing with industry giants. Jonathan stood beside her, his hand resting gently on her back. Behind them, Oliver, Sophia, and Lucas sat with their grandmother, dressed in tiny formal outfits and waving at the cameras. The children were 3 years old now, full of energy and personality. Oliver had his nose constantly in books, already reading at a first-grade level. Sophia showed a remarkable talent for drawing and could spend hours creating elaborate pictures. Lucas was the comedian of the family, always making everyone laugh with his silly faces and funny observations. Ready to become a billionaire? Jonathan whispered in her ear, his eyes twinkling with pride. Natalie looked out at the crowd of investors, reporters, and well-wishers. Somewhere in that crowd was Victor, who had tried desperately to buy shares in their company through shell corporations. They had blocked every attempt. This success was theirs alone, built on trust and genuine partnership. Ready to change the world, Natalie replied, and together they pressed the button. The bell rang out across the trading floor, and applause erupted. The stock opened at $42 per share and climbed steadily throughout the day. By closing, Natalie's 25% stake in the company was worth over $800 million. She had gone from homeless and desperate to one of the wealthiest self-made women in the country. Victor's downfall. That evening, as they celebrated at an intimate dinner with close friends and family, Natalie's phone buzzed with a news alert. She glanced at it and felt a cold satisfaction wash over her. Victor's company just filed for bankruptcy, she said quietly, showing Jonathan the screen. Jonathan read the article, his expression neutral. His investors finally pulled out after the fraud investigation went public. Natalie had not pursued Victor legally beyond ensuring he had no claim to her children. But karma had its own way of working. Victor's mistreatment of employees, his unethical business practices, and his pattern of using people had eventually caught up with him. Former partners had come forward with evidence of financial manipulation. The same business community he had tried to turn against Natalie had instead turned on him. "Do you feel vindicated?" Jonathan asked gently. Natalie thought about it carefully. "No," she said finally. "I feel free. For so long, I carried anger and hurt over what he did. But looking at my life now, looking at our children and everything we have built together, I realize he gave me the greatest gift. He let me go so I could find something real." Jonathan reached across the table and took her hand. "You are an extraordinary woman, Natalie Harper." Soon to be Natalie Pierce, she said with a smile. "If that proposal still stands." Jonathan's eyes widened. "Are you saying what I think you are saying?" "I'm saying yes," Natalie laughed. "Yes, I will marry you. Yes, I want to spend forever with you. Yes to everything." Jonathan stood up abruptly, nearly knocking over his wine glass. The entire restaurant went quiet as he dropped to one knee beside her chair. From his jacket pocket, he pulled out a velvet box that he had apparently been carrying for months, waiting for the right moment. "Natalie Harper," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "You walked into my life on the worst night of yours, and you changed everything. You showed me what real strength looks like. You taught me that family is not about biology but about showing up and loving unconditionally. You made me a better man, a better leader, and gave me the greatest joy I have ever known." He opened the box to reveal a stunning ring with a deep blue sapphire surrounded by diamonds. "This sapphire reminded me of your eyes on that rainy night. This ring has been waiting for you to be ready. Will you marry me? Will you let me be a real father to Oliver, Sophia, and Lucas? Will you build this beautiful, chaotic, perfect life with me?" Tears streamed down Natalie's face as she nodded. "Yes. 1,000 times yes." The restaurant erupted in applause as Jonathan slipped the ring onto her finger and kissed her. When they pulled apart, Oliver was tugging on Jonathan's sleeve. "Does this mean you are our real daddy now?" Oliver asked seriously. Jonathan scooped him up, then reached for Sophia and Lucas, gathering all 3 children into his arms along with Natalie. "I have always been your real daddy. But yes, now it will be official. How do you feel about that?" "I feel happy," Sophia said, wrapping her small arms around his neck. "Me too," Lucas added. "Can we have cake now?" Everyone laughed, and Natalie felt her heart swell with a happiness so complete it almost hurt. This was her family. This was her life. And it was more beautiful than anything she could have imagined in those dark days when Victor had thrown her away. The wedding. 6 months later, Natalie stood in an elegant bridal suite, adjusting her wedding dress. It was a simple but stunning gown in ivory silk that flowed around her like water. Her mother stood behind her, fastening the delicate pearl necklace that had been in their family for generations. "I was wrong about Victor," her mother said quietly. "I pushed you toward him because he seemed successful and stable. I didn't see what he really was." "You couldn't have known," Natalie replied, squeezing her mother's hand. "I didn't see it either until it was too late." "But Jonathan," her mother continued, her eyes filling with tears. "That man loves you the way you deserve to be loved. The way he looks at you and those children, that is real love, sweetheart." A knock on the door interrupted them, and Sophia peeked in, wearing a miniature version of Natalie's dress as the flower girl. "Mama, Daddy says it's almost time. Are you ready?" Natalie smiled at her daughter. Jonathan had legally adopted all 3 children last month. The courtroom had been full of tears and joy as the judge finalized the papers. The children now carried the Pierce name, and Victor had no legal connection to them whatsoever. He had signed away his rights willingly in exchange for Natalie not pursuing him for back child support. "I'm ready," Natalie said, taking one last look in the mirror. The woman staring back at her was confident, successful, and deeply loved. She was unrecognizable from the broken person who had knelt in the rain 3 years ago. The ceremony took place in the gardens of their home, the same estate where Jonathan had first brought her to safety. 200 guests filled the white chairs, but Natalie only had eyes for Jonathan as she walked down the aisle. He stood at the altar in a perfectly tailored tuxedo, and when their eyes met, his face transformed with pure joy. Oliver and Lucas walked beside her as ring-bearers, taking their jobs very seriously. Sophia scattered rose petals with artistic flair, making sure each one landed in a perfect spot. When Natalie reached the altar, Jonathan took both her hands in his. "You are stunning," he whispered. "You are not so bad yourself," she replied with a smile. The ceremony was beautiful and personal. They had written their own vows, and when it was Jonathan's turn to speak, his voice carried clearly across the garden. "Natalie, 3 years ago, I found you in a storm. But the truth is, you found me too. You brought light and love and purpose into my life. You showed me what it means to be part of a real family. I promise to honor you, cherish you, and stand beside you through every storm and every sunshine. I promise to be the father our children deserve and the partner you can always count on. I promise to love you more with each passing day for the rest of our lives. Natalie's vows were equally heartfelt. Jonathan, you saw me when I was invisible. You believed in me when I had stopped believing in myself. You gave me safety when I had none and partnership when I needed it most. But more than that, you gave me a love I didn't think existed. A love that is patient and kind and unconditionally supportive. I promise to build this life with you as equals. I promise to love Oliver, Sophia, and Lucas alongside you. And I promise that whatever challenges come, we will face them together. When the officiant pronounced them husband and wife, their kiss was met with thunderous applause. The reception was a joyous celebration that lasted well into the night. Natalie danced with Jonathan, with her father, and with each of her children. She laughed with friends, toasted with colleagues, and felt surrounded by genuine love. Full circle. Late in the evening, as guests began to leave, Natalie found herself standing in the exact spot where Jonathan had first helped her out of his car 3 years ago. The memory was so vivid she could almost feel the rain on her skin. Jonathan appeared beside her, having removed his jacket and tie. "What are you thinking about?" "About how far we have come," Natalie said, leaning into his embrace. "About how that terrible night led to all of this. Do you ever regret it?" Jonathan asked. "The pain you went through?" Natalie considered the question seriously. "No. As horrible as it was, it brought me here. It brought me to you and to this life. I wouldn't change it because changing it might mean losing this." Jonathan kissed the top of her head. "I got a call today from the foundation. We just hit $1 billion in charitable donations facilitated through our platform. $1 billion going to help children and families who need it." Natalie smiled against his chest. "All those people we are helping, they are getting their second chances just like I got mine." "Just like we both got," Jonathan corrected. "I was successful before you, Natalie, but I was not happy. I was not whole. You completed me." They stood together in comfortable silence, watching the stars appear in the clear night sky. Inside the house, they could hear the children laughing with their grandparents. The sound of family and love and home. "Mrs. Pierce," Jonathan said softly. "How does it feel?" "Perfect," Natalie replied. "Absolutely perfect." 5 years later. The charity gala was the social event of the season. Natalie stood at the podium in a stunning silver gown, addressing the crowd of donors and supporters. Oliver, Sophia, and Lucas sat in the front row, now 8 years old and watching their mother with obvious pride. Beside them sat their baby sister, 2-year-old Emma, named after Natalie's grandmother. 5 years ago, Natalie began, her voice strong and clear, "I stood in the rain with nowhere to go and no hope for the future. One act of kindness from a stranger changed everything. Jonathan Pierce saw me not as a charity case but as a person with value and potential. He gave me a chance to prove myself." She looked at Jonathan, who sat with Emma on his lap, his eyes shining with love and pride. "Tonight, we are announcing the Harper Pierce Initiative," Natalie continued. "A $50 million fund dedicated to helping single parents who have been abandoned or abused. We will provide housing, job training, legal assistance, and childcare support. Because everyone deserves a second chance. Everyone deserves to be seen." The applause was deafening. Natalie stepped down from the podium and was immediately surrounded by well-wishers and reporters. But she made her way through the crowd to her family, to Jonathan and their 4 beautiful children. "You were amazing," Jonathan said, standing to embrace her while balancing Emma on his hip. "We were amazing," Natalie corrected. "Everything we have built, we built together." Oliver tugged on her dress. "Mom, are we really going to help people like Daddy helped you?" "Yes, sweetheart," Natalie said, kneeling down to his level. We are going to help as many people as we can. Good, Sophia added firmly. Because everyone should have a family like ours. Lucas, ever the comedian, added, and everyone should have cake like at our house. That would help too. The family laughed together, a sound of pure joy and contentment. As Natalie looked around at the faces of her children and her husband, she felt overwhelming gratitude. Victor had meant to destroy her by throwing her away. Instead, he had freed her to find something infinitely better. She had found love. She had found purpose. She had found herself. And in finding herself, she had discovered that the greatest revenge was not destroying the person who hurt you. The greatest revenge was building a life so beautiful and meaningful that their cruelty became irrelevant. Victor was somewhere out there, bitter and alone. But Natalie was here, surrounded by love, making a difference in the world. The rain had washed away her old life. But from those ashes, she had risen stronger, wiser, and more compassionate. She had become the woman she was always meant to be. And it had all started with one billionaire's single act of kindness on a stormy night. That night, Jonathan had not just saved her life. He had shown her that she was worth saving. And that made all the difference. The end.